chop, I had something go haywire. I don't think it was her related. I think it was her little stupids were reporting the video left and right. Because, whoops, I hate this stupid ring light half the time. I think I'm just going to go without it because I have enough natural light here. Something went haywire with last night's video. I don't think I got an outright copyright strike. I had an email from YouTube telling me that you couldn't. I cut off. Somebody reported it, her stupids, I believe, as using someone else's content because I had read parts of her Instagram thing where she was talking about IFB and the Duggars and all of that. Oh, God. I'm going to turn this low because this is really, I like to look natural, but I don't like to look crazy. So there's a difference. And it has to do with the lighting. So anyway, and I'm playing with my hair a lot. Yeah, hey, Christoph fan. Hey, Ginger Lee. Hey, Pork Chop. It's just crazy sometimes, the stuff that happens on these really stupid YouTube streets. Last night I did about an hour-long stream where I was kind of rambling and saying everything. Rambling, shambling, all of that. Why? Because I'm not good at nights. A lot of the medications that I take cloud the mind, and I'm best first thing in the morning when I've had coffee and when I'm drinking my Coca Cero. When I'm pounding the caffeine, but before the drugs have kicked in. So I wasn't, go right ahead. I think it was their little stupids because they sent me the email. They said I needed to pull down the video and edit that out. I did pull down the video. I just tried to reload it and wouldn't let me reload it. So I think that either I'm having an issue with YouTube or there's something bigger going on. Yeah, thank you, Pork Chop, because you really do document everything that she is doing. And I, for one, appreciate that. I was coming in here today to sing You're So Vain by Carly Simon because it certainly seems to fit the circumstances going on. So let's talk about it. If you don't know me, I'm Suzanne Tedkemeyer. I wrote for Pathos for almost 10 years, doing my own thing now. And don't throw any hate at her or her little stupids, please, or anyone else. These are just my opinions. Hit that like or subscribe button or hit the dislike if you don't like what I'm doing. So it feels unnatural to have to beg for the YouTube-y things, but apparently they're getting on to all of us. So what happened last night was, like I said, I got an email about editing my video because I had used some words someone had written I'd read aloud. So I pulled it down to do it. I did edit it, tried to upload it, and it is not working. So guess what? We're just going to do another video. I'm still not sure if I got copyright struck or whatever. I looked at my YouTube channel panel, and I don't see anything about a copyright strike. So I'm not willing to call this a copyright strike. I just think that her little stupids mass reported last night. So we're not going to mention her when we're talking about this stuff anymore. I wanted to go back over everything that was alleged that I debunked because this needs to be out there, this hate comic space. You probably think the stream is about you, don't you? But it's not. It's about the Duggars, the IFB. Where's my AC thing? I'm freezing. I'm either freezing or boiling. Freezing. So anyway, we're going to talk about that crap. And I want to add a few things about the Duggars. You know, we first saw the Duggars when they had 14 kids and counting, I believe it was. And it was a special on TLC. I think it was 2005, maybe 2004. I was circling the drain and leaving my old quiverful life in church at that point. I had already started to have doubts. There were cracks in the facade that I could not paper over, and I instantaneously disliked the Duggars. Michelle was like a weird carbon copy of a friend of mine from my church that I was going to, who had the same number of children, same hairstyle, same dressing standards, same little girl voice that she talked like this. But there was a difference. I know my friend was a sweet, wonderful person. I didn't know that about Michelle. So because of what I was dealing with, I was just almost gagging every time their specials came on. So I've been watching from the beginning, because at the beginning it was just weirdness about how the whole thing, and knowing the theology behind the screen. It was just knowing what they were talking about. And they weren't this sweet, lovely, innocent couple. Knowing that they were promoting something that was pretty awful in a lot of ways. For me, it was kind of like the moment in The Wizard of Oz where they pulled away the curtain and you could see that the great and wonderful Wizard of Oz, was a little tiny guy. It was that sort of moment for me. Hey, always grateful, Jamie and Kira. So it was a real shocker. And I was going through that when I first saw the Duggar specials. Somebody was saying how this and that and how many people they had in their house and stuff. When the specials first started, it was 14 children. They were living in a rental house that belonged to a church that had been condemned and was going to be torn down. They were living in this little rental house with their 14 children, and it was a 3-bedroom house with 1 bathroom. To me, that sounded like hell. How in the heck do you even do bath time when you have that many kids? Michelle showed us her family closet where they just kept all of the clothes in the laundry room and bins. And all of her organizational tips. She talked about blanket training. That all popped up in the first video. And later videos refined these things. They kind of edited a lot of them out because the way viewers had reacted, going, what? Blanket training? Why are you spanking your little 6-month-old baby? Oh, so that happened. And like I said, they started from this 3-bedroom house with 1 bath, minuscule, that was a rental, to the 10 mansion. And it took them some years of working on the 10 mansion to make it happen. And they had to get TLC to finish it up because they were bumping up a date that they had to be out of the rental house because the rental house was just going to be torn down. I don't know what they built in its place. But TLC came in and finished the whole thing. They brought in an interior decorator who just made the place gorgeous. So that all happened. And if you do the math, that's 14 kids. You divide them up in bunk beds in those little rooms. It works. It's not optimal. It's not an optimal way to raise your family, but people do that. I mean, it just happens. I knew a ton of quiverful families at my old church that had large families who made it work whatever way it had to happen. I know one quiverful family I knew well bought an older house. It had been built sometime in the 60s, and they turned the living room into a dormitory for the girls because they had that many daughters. You do what you must do. And far be it from me to say these things are wrong. If you're living in a place that does not have building codes that say you can only have X amount of people per bedroom, each bedroom has to have a window of X size, you can't have more than X people using a single bathroom, then you have to abide by that. But in places like Arkansas, it's very doubtful if those rules take place. And as much as I don't like what the Duggars stand for, the quiverful movement, I'm going to say they were doing the best they could. I mean, they didn't have a whole lot of income. It was pretty obvious Jim Bob doesn't like charging anything. They weren't going to go into debt to have a house. So there you have it. And it's not a sick thing. People try to say that it was sick that they had all their kids like that, shoved into a few little bedrooms. And this is a house they were living in when Josh started his rude behavior with the girls. Chronic space, are you having some health problems? I didn't realize that. I hope you're feeling better now. So as weird as it seems to us outside of the little group of the IBLP, this is actually how a lot of quiverful families live their lives. And a lot of them never get beyond the little tiny rental house because they just don't have the funds. They say that a father cannot work, a husband cannot work for somebody else. He has to have his own businesses. That's a big part of this whole thing too. They have all these independence things. And it just is what it is. You've been rough? You've been having a rough time? I'm staying inside right now. Well, I have some rooms I need to clean out, including hitting my closet and pulling out everything with a hole and getting rid of it. I got to do that today. I'm getting tired of stumbling over my clothes, and some of them fit, some of them don't. So I'm going to sort them. Too small, too big. The ones that fit, ones with too many holes are going to hit the scrap pile. So there were all kinds of allegations made about there being other boys in that family were predators like Josh. I've seen no evidence of that. I've heard no rumors. I heard all about what Josh did when I was still at my Quiverful church, but the prayer request came in that it was a family in our larger group, a good Christian Quiverful family that was preparing to have a television show, was asking for favor, and it was asking for prayer for their son, and was praying on the daughters. So I heard about this years and years and years before it ever erupted, and it was always whispered about on the edges. I've yet to hear any whispering at all about any other boys doing this. Now, it could be that the Duggars have a tighter rein on what they're doing now, but I tend to think not. I tend to think they probably are not, because there's been no report of this. It seems like all of our parents all grew up in 2 to 3 bedroom, 1 bath houses with 8 to 13 kids. It wasn't uncommon for French Catholic Irish families growing up in the 60s and 70s. We all shared rooms. Gingerly, I wanted to throw that out there too. My mother grew up in a family of 12, a Catholic, French Catholic family. And there was 1 bedroom for the girls and 1 bedroom for the boys. And if they had a lot of either one, the bunk beds grew higher. Or they had a double bed where they had 3 or 4 kids sleeping in it. These things happen, and none of these people had money. So I just want to normalize this. It's the 2000s or maybe even the 90s, that this whole over the top, everybody has to have a bedroom thing started, where it was just not acceptable anymore. And as I've said, I'm sorry, Sunday. You've got to do what you got to do when you're having those episodes, or whatever you're having, any kind of medical thing, and do what's good for you. I'm just going to throw that out there. Hey, for F's sake. That is my theology this morning. So someone went on and said that the IBLP, Institute for Basic Life Principles, the people that are involved in that, were involved in the same things that Josh was in. I'm just going to throw out there again that anytime you have an organized religion, a high demand religious organization, and you have one guy in charge with lots of power, these things happen. I think it's a bad thing. I think it needs to be rooted out. I don't care if it's Jewish, Mormon, Mennonite, Catholic, evangelical. It needs to stop. Too many women have been made into victims, and too many children damaged by these guys. So my experience with the IBLP and everybody in it, and being on kind of the edges of that, because I went to with church with a lot of IBLP people and knew their theology pretty well. They're going to be predators in these high demand religious organizations. I don't think that you can say one religion has more of them than the others. They all seem to have them. It's tragic. It creates victims. It creates all kinds of lifelong problems for those who have been molested as children. I can honestly say that from having lived through that myself. It has a echo until you can get therapy to deal with it. Suzanne, I'm sorry to mention my stupidity in your chat, but Pork Chop had me blocked on Twitter, and I wanted to make sure. Sunday, that is fine. We are trying to, we live and learn, and we learn, like somebody just said, comic space. It is what it is, Sunday, and you sometimes have to say those things. There's somebody that was trying to talk to me that has, I mean, they got problems, who apparently has blocked me, and I need to get a word to this person too. And I think I have her phone number, so I may call her. The problem is, that's the other thing I wanted to talk about, with all these high demand religious organizations and all this hurt. There's so many people out here who are hurting and desperate and really hurt. So many people that have suffered, so many suffering people, that sometimes for me it gets overwhelming, particularly if I'm dealing with something like watching the trial of Josh Duggar. It took me a while to even start responding to emails and messages. I'm just now starting to scratch the surface on that and talk to people, because it was just so triggering and horrible, everything that was said, everything going on with the trial, which I was watching on the Sun and giving them credit for what they were saying. They had somebody actually embedded in the trial who was giving regular reports. And I really appreciated that. I can say that about the Sun now. I know people like to bash the British tabloids, but I got to tell you, the British tabloids are frequently quite right on a lot of things. I try to be kind to everyone. I follow everyone back. You have to do a lot for me to block. Yeah, acting like a troll is never cool, but it does happen. It seems to be a lot of mass reporting going on lately. Deborah, there's a large amount. So I'm just going to stay out of all of that. I saw that the Calle Cerdo, as I'm calling him in Spanish, is having people mass reporting somebody else's second channel they've had for years. So there's all this mass reporting going on, and it's pretty ridiculous. We're supposed to be adults here. And I'm trying to talk about these serious things. Like I said, I know for a fact that all this stuff is going on, and there's all these people, well, not all these people, there's mostly one person reporting all this stuff incorrectly. I heard a story last night and this morning on Twitter where someone's questioning child ran across the demented ravings of someone and took them as the gospel truth and started questioning their faith. That's a sad story, but that shows you the reach sometimes that creators have that they don't even realize. Yeah, Pork Chop, we do love you to the moon and back. Oh, I'm just feeling the love this morning, even though I'm laughing over the report, the mass flagging things, because they are kind of silly. And we're going to do what we do until we get. So anyway, long story short, the IBLP has no more predators than the average other organized religious, high demand organized religious group. I'm just going to throw that out there. Bill Gothard did get popped for forcible touching. That was his crime. Through a large pile of young women in their teens, he did this to, that he had volunteering around his place, and he was removed and had to apologize to the women. I think it should have gone more to financial, but who am I? It's true that Gil Bates was mentioned in one of the lawsuits, but here's the thing. Gil was not the only one sued. It was everybody on the board at the IBLP. It wasn't some grand thing going after the Bates. I don't care what she's saying about that. I believe it was dropped, if I remember right. It's been a long time since that happened. And I haven't kept up with everything in the community, especially the last year, since I've been really mostly out of it, except when I'm trying to explain it. I've been watching you for a while, but never commented. I so appreciate you telling us the truth, unlike that another channel. Thank you. Thank you, Beth. I really appreciate that. So Gil was sued. It probably did. I believe it was dropped. And Bill Gothard had to apologize and just go away. Now, he tried to come back, but the IBLP would not let him. I'm going to have to scare up the links and put them in the description of Bill Gothard trying to apologize and trying to come back. He set up a series of websites. One of them was all these people stroking him and saying all these positive things about him, but it didn't work. He's never been allowed back at the IBLP. The IBLP is smaller than it used to be. It moved from its Illinois headquarters to its Big Sandy, Texas property. It's smaller. It doesn't have the reach it once had because of all these dramas with the Duggars and others that have exposed pretty much what's going on there. She's sleeping. I don't know if Mr. Bates did anything wrong. He was sitting on the board of directors, and I believe that was employed by the young women that were part of that lawsuit. And they weren't really necessarily young women. Some of them were grown. Some were in their 30s and 40s. So it was things that the statute of limitations had long since been in place for. So they could have maybe sued through civil court. I don't know how that would have gone because of the and my brain is gone already. How silly is that? And I haven't taken my morning meds yet because of the length of time it had been. So all of that did happen. It's true, but it was just not reported 100% correctly there. I don't know what's next for the Duggars, but I think we need to be as kind as we can to the surviving children. Because one thing I do know for sure is they're all stuck processing whatever happened during the trial. I don't know how many of them actually heard the testimony, but it has to be rough on them. They're questioning everything now. And don't forget that Mr. Duggar, Jim Bob Duggar, controls all the money in that household. So this is a lot of families that he's supporting. People like John David, who flies several planes in Jim Bob's name, lives in a house bought by him. And this is not an uncommon thing. I also want to point out, as she tries to make this out as sick, there are a lot of patriarchs that do this thing, where the head patriarch, the oldest guy in the family, runs everything. We see this in the FDLS. We see this with the theonomists like Von Ullman. They do this. The oldest male in the family is a patriarch that controls everything. It's kind of sick and sad. Yeah, I was told I could do civil. Yes, you can. So you have to understand with a lot of these religions, they follow the umbrella model as put together by Bill Gothard. God or Jesus, the husband, the wife, and the children. They're all under this kind of pecking order. It would be kind of like chain of command in the military. There's a lot of problems with the chain of command theory, mostly that it infantilizes women and makes them 100% accountable to a man. I know in Quiverful, that is how marriages work. That's not how marriages work with most people, including a lot of people who are Christians, identify as Christians. You know, it says in the Bible, it talks about love is patient, love is kind. It talks about the partnership that is marriage. And I think for a lot of us, most of us, our marriages are partnerships. And there are times when the partnership responsibilities lessen and become greater. This year, for the first time ever, I had to ask my husband to put things on the top of the Christmas tree because after having my thalamic stroke, I don't have any balance. I wasn't about to climb a step ladder to ring lights. I just couldn't do it. So I actually asked him and he did it. And that's the first time in our entire marriage I've ever got him to participate in Christmas decorations. It's just not his thing. It is my thing, but he appreciates it. So he did it. And he's had to take on things like sweeping that I can't do anymore because it involves balance. And that's okay because that's how most marriages work. But you have to remember in these organizations, they don't work like that. So therefore, these women, when they have these things happen, whether their husband runs off or he dies or something, they really have a hard transition. I'm watching this right now with a friend of mine here whose husband left her over a year ago. And she has trouble with things that for me are second nature, that have always been second nature. Like she had an engine blow up because she didn't check the oil and the coolant in the radiator. I don't do that anymore now, but I know how to do it. And for many years, I did do it. I had my own auto. I just did it. Here, we're sharing an auto, and my husband does those things, so I don't worry about it so much. But in these strict, defined gender role families, this becomes a huge problem when something happens to the man. Huge problem. She's now having to pay for an engine in her car because she didn't realize that checking the oil was a thing because it was a gendered thing. And when I asked her about it, she said, well, I don't have a husband. How was I supposed to know I was supposed to do that? I was kind of like, and then later I started thinking about it. She was raised in a very fundamentalist household. Her father did everything. They had strict gender roles. And she got married. She expected those gender roles to carry on, and they didn't. They ended when he left her. And I think before that, and I started to get a little bit of a sense about why he may have left her, because she just would not do certain things. She just thought it was a gendered thing. So she's having to learn to do those things. Oh, if the women completely surrender and follow blindly, maybe then he's kind. But tyrants are rarely kind. Lisa, I've never seen one to be kind. I never have. I'm sure there's somebody out there, but most of the ones I see are just petty idiots. I believe that happens to a degree in family businesses where a son or daughter works for the family and set to take over a business. Yes. Deborah, Josh may have been abused as a child, but we will never know that unless Josh himself comes out and said, hey, this happened to me. And I don't know if that will happen. I actually feel sorry for Josh because in these very gendered things, he doesn't know how to deal with the reality. He's never had to deal with consequences for his action, and he is now. And it's going to be a hard, bumpy reality without adding in other inmates who may want to do him harm. I'm hoping they put him in Tucson in the SA offenders section, where he'll be around people who did the same thing as him, and he'll be less likely to get shanked going to the shower. I'm hoping that. The Duggars allowed any Christian fans to stay at the house, lots of strangers in and out of the home. Yes, Lisa, and if you look back to when they were living in the little tiny rental and allowing other people to come stay with them, I've known this and seen this throughout Quiverful myself, and you just make do. You just do. There were times when we had people staying with us, and that was fine. We just let them stay. Kick one of the kids out of their bedroom, have them sleep with the other kid or sleep in our bedroom and give over the bedrooms to someone else. We had a California King water bed, fit everybody in the family. There was none of that funny, weird stuff going on with us. He may have been abused as well, but plenty of us were abused as kids, and we didn't turn around and abuse others. Exactly. I just want to shout that out. Being abused is not is not a thing that means that you're going to go on abuse. No. And there are people that turn into abusers who were never abused. So it's not a hard and fast rule on that. I can't believe the Duggars let strangers sleep in their daughters' beds. Someone stole Ginger's diary. I remember that whole thing. That's awful. And they were selling pages of it, I think, online, something like that, or they were exposing it. That's just wrong. I mean, if somebody is kind enough to let you stay in their house, the last thing you do is you steal their diaries. That's just the worst. I have to condemn that kind of behavior. I don't care who you are, what you believe, if you believe in if you believe in whatever, if you're praying to the flying spaghetti monster, you just don't do that. There are just some things as humans we should not do, and that's one of them. And the Duggars and some of the families that are involved with them do go to independent fundamentalist Baptist churches. The thing is, that's not all. A lot of IBLP also will go to non-denominationals. Heck, the Quiverful church I attended was non-denominational. We were all a bunch of lapsed Catholics for the most part who had joined Quiverful later and were now espousing the theology that the rest of them were. But like I said, where I went was a mixed bag. We were non-denominational. We had some people that followed the Pearls, some people that followed Vision Forum. Now that's another ball of wax I have to talk about one day. Doug Phillips and Vision Forum and how he drove it into the ground over the allegations of one of his babysitters. That's another case of these guys crashing and burning. Someday soon, I'm going to have to list all the different ministries I know where the ministry crashed and burned because the guy running it started trying to get his jollies somewhere where he wasn't supposed to. Did you end up watching I Pray You Burn This Journal videos on here? He knew Josh as a kid. I did, but it was so long ago, I couldn't even tell you. TLC had cameras in there as a big part of their year. How did this go so far without detection? Sunday, I believe that TLC knew. They knew a version of it, maybe the sanitized version that Jim Bob was telling everybody when it first came out in 2015. Why do I say that? Because in 2007, when TLC was there filming one of the births, Josh was suing DHS. The very next day, he was going to court. Now, I believe that that's settled. I don't know. I haven't been able to pull the documents for that, but I'm not a creeper that runs around and pulling all the legal documents. But that did happen. He did sue DHS, something to do with something that went down when he had that police report written. There was something. Same with John and Kate. It's just so sad. Well, the worship times are private, and Josh said he did most during Bible study. Oh my goodness, that is not right. There's got to be a special place in hell for him for that. I always thought Michelle was Stepford wife. And yes, I want to talk about that too. My girlfriend Cindy, whose blogs I've linked to in the description, has started talking about the 1,000-mile stare, the 1,000-yard stare. She started talking about that and dissociation. And I think there's a lot of that goes on in these kind of high demand religious organizations. Just look at Michelle. Every time we see Michelle, she has that 1,000-yard stare, that PTSD. What did they call it back in the old days? They called it battle fatigue. She's got battle fatigue like the worst I've ever seen anybody. And she's hardly the only one. I've noticed this in a lot of Quiverful families and families who are involved with high demand religious organizations. You get the 1,000-yard stare. Cindy said she had it and posted some pictures, but all I saw is that she just looked lovely. It's a fugue state, yes. And the more abuse there is, the easier it is to go into this fugue state and just disassociate. I remember the first time I saw the movie Precious. I don't know how many of you have seen that. And what was the other one that I watched that I disassociation? It was Jawbreaker. Was that it? Precious was disassociating horribly during the abuse by her stepfather. It was the most realistic depiction of disassociation I'd seen in a long time. And then Jawbreaker, which was a film John Hamm was in. I believe that was the name of it. It took place in a girls' psychiatric hospital for teenagers, and she was disassociating, and then she was disassociating again in the middle of her disassociation, and it got really strange. But I was so compelled by that movie. Both of those movies held my attention because it was like, wow, this is what it's like. This is what happens when these things happen to you and you're disassociating and you don't have words to say what happened to you, don't have words to, to give. Both of those movies I would recommend. I'm going to put links in the description to those things too. She just passed a baby off with little to no bonding, in my humble opinion, to the kids to raise. Exactly. I don't know what happened there. Crazy days on YouTube streams. Deborah, you were exactly right. Exactly right. And I was angry and hostile last night with all that. Yes, and they do seem to want Stepford Wives, but the latest Stepford Wives movie, the newest one, I think it was with Glenn Close. It had a weird twist at the end where it was one of the wives who was driving the bus, and I am reminded of a certain female cultural enforcer who wrote a book called The Power of the Transformed Wife. I could see that happening because a lot of her commenters are incel type guys. So the things she's saying, I could see. And she was involved with biblical gender roles, who's another ball of wax is crazy. He's got all these bizarre ideas about sex, wives owe men sex. Men are supposed to take that sex if your wife doesn't give it to you freely. And you can't look into her face or her eyes while you're doing this to her because you watching her cry is sinful. I think most states have laws against that. Precious abused by the mom, too. Exactly right. She was. You're my complex, interesting, intelligent ground. Lisa, thank you so much. The original was interesting. The remake was interesting. They all had their interesting bits and parts of it as far as the Stepford Wives. But it draws an interesting conclusion about how some men can't handle women in their realness. It's just too threatening that you have a mind, that you have interests, that you have things. I really, in the newest remake, I really felt like my spirit animal was the Bette Midler one, the one that was messy and was doing art and various things. That's me. I'm sorry. I keep my house pretty clean, not exactly 100% Stepford clean, but I keep it pretty clean. I keep my bedroom immaculate because this is my retreat when the asthma's bad. I keep the rest of the house pretty clean. But I'm not a Stepford wife. If I decide to blow off a day of cleaning to paint, it happens. It happens. But if I decide I'm too sick to do the dishes, guess what? They will wait for another day. And that's okay. But they don't think that's okay. They don't want to allow women any slight anything. Crank out kids, you raise the kids, you homeschool them, you keep the house immaculate on a budget. You feed, clothe, and do all this on a budget, and it just doesn't work. It's just the way the world is situated now. I mean, women have always had to work to a certain degree. I mean, you look at the Edwardian times and the Victorian eras even, and they're talking about, oh, women stayed home. Women helped out with the family businesses more often than not. And poor women had no choice. They went off to be servants in a rich person's home, or they worked in a shop. They did other things, worked in a factory. I mean, look at the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory back in the early 1900s. That did not happen to a bunch of men in a factory. That was women. That was poor women. There were a lot of women working at the factory who didn't even speak English very well. They are both strange and, like I said, very scary to think the person you love and believe loves you above anyone else, but God would do that to you. Yes, it is very scary with those things. These kids miss all the milestones with mom. Yes, exactly. And I think that they don't have the bond with mom. That's my theory behind Josh and his parents. He was the first child. Of course, they got to see those milestones and bond to him. Now, whether they did that to subsequent children is open to interpretation. I think Jana may have gotten that too. But I think with the law of diminishing returns that they didn't get that. And with each subsequent child, it just got weirder and weirder and less and less. Oh, wow. I did not know that, Clem. That is pretty crazy. Hey, Kareem, we're talking about a certain person's followers. And I was just talking about theology only here. So, but I read part of, oh, yeah. I saw last night, Kareem, that you were live, and I went in for a half a second. I've just been super busy lately. I have asthma and I also have other health issues. If I'm too sick to do the dishes, my husband will go in and do. That is wonderful, Mike. I don't have that option. You got settled in today. Good. You're in your new apartment. I'm really happy about that. Now, if that certain person, if the porcelain pavement guy would leave you alone, that would be good. But I don't know that he will. He seems to be determined to take blood. I hear of the fundamentalist families, women part-time working a lot, and all the house and kid in school too. Lots of side gigs like MLM. Lisa, that's all they're allowed. They're allowed MLMs most of the time. Many times they start doing MLMs so that they have the money to provide the extras that the husband's salary does not. They're basic their entire lives on an old agricultural model. It doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't. Nobody has these huge farms anymore where they need tons of workers. Farming is an automated business now. It just is. And not everybody. Yeah, I did see that, Jamie, because I watched that and I laughed. And I like the Ashley a lot, as well as like an Emily D. Baker. I don't always get a chance to watch everything she does because time and life. I like to eat. I like my house reasonably clean. I like clean laundry. I have too many crafts, so I don't have a chance to watch everybody's live streams. That's just the reality of it. I finally had to step back from the YouTube community and say, hey, I got to do these things for me, particularly when I started having crazy hyper asthma all the time. And I still don't know about going back to church. Hey, Bliss Chris, I don't know about going back to church this Sunday. I know my husband wants me to. I'm not much liking the church that he's picked. It works for him. It doesn't work for me. Like I said, this past Sunday, I had somebody tell me that this is a church that does not believe in masking ever. I had another person yell at me to take off my mask. I had to actually talk to somebody in church leadership and say, what the hell, man? And found out that, oh, that's not our policy. So then why are your members attacking me for wearing a mask? I have mast cell. I don't want to catch COVID. I've gotten vaccinated. I'm going to get the booster when I go back. What the hell? So we get closer and closer to maybe a Sunday online religious, well, not religious, faith gathering here, because I'm kind of looking at that and I'm just not sure. I'm not sure what to do with that and where to go. Yeah, best of luck to you, Kareem. We want to see you do well. We don't always agree with everything you say, but we want you to do well. Oh, never said it made sense. Yeah. Luckily got out. I'm going to move forward and start dealing with people legally behind the scenes. My block list is super crazy. Kareem, so is mine. A lot of times I just don't engage. I had somebody last night that came in that was a fan of without a box of Kleenex and was going after me and called me a bunch of names. They posted a bunch of crazy comments. I left one up and answered them and said, I'm moving you to Jerks for Jesus. When I set that up years ago, when I was writing for NLQ, it became the most helpful place to stick Duggar huggers. And this person was the anti-Duggar hugger. They were defending Amy, cousin Amy, saying stuff about the family again. And I had made a video the other night where I said, just knock it off. Those things are true and they may be true or may not be true. But it's not helpful to have you blast them out on social media all the time. You need to be reaching out to your cousins and helping them process, because leaving and or just dealing with this crap is hard. It's a hard thing and you need all the helps you can get. Bethy has his old Kareem Williams. Well, I hope you didn't block me, Kareem, because I will come back in and say some things eventually and talk and whatever, but it's going to be a little while because I'm still trying to very carefully protect my time, not online, because of the crazy asthma. I don't like the crazy asthma. I want the crazy asthma to go the hell away. I want to be able to recover from the stroke. I'm still in recovery there. And Kareem, I'm just going to come out and throw it out to you and everybody else. Please take care of your health. If you got issues going on, take care of it. At first of the year, I'm going back on a super strict diet. I don't see any point in doing it before the new year because Christmas. But I'm trying to eat right. I'm going to be eating right. I've started exercising on the days when the pollen is sane, and I'm just going to have to go from there. My husband doesn't know it yet, but I'm about to take the exercycle and snatch that thing up and move it in the house. He may have something of a fit about that because he thinks it belongs outside. Well, I have to have something I can do that does not involve asthma and pollen. I saw your comment on Twitter under Amy's post. Left one myself. Can't stand her. Throws rocks, hides her hands. She's just as bad. Yeah, she's undercover nasty. And I told her, I think you're hanging out with mean girls and mean girls are influencing you, because that's another thing I wanted to say, Kareem. This might apply to you too. You are who you hang out with. You're going to be influenced by people. If you hang out with people who are crappy people, guess what happens? You start doing and saying crappy things. That's something I've realized more and more lately. And another reason why I'm not in love with going to my husband's church, the church that he goes to. Lisa, I'm glad you find it. I'm glad you find this calm, because I'm just too Carol, that's a hard thing to learn to deal with. When I left my Quiverful church, it was a hideously bad experience. I left because my husband left, and I started getting the impression in my private worship and prayer life that I was supposed to follow him. And it does say in the Bible that your husband is your spiritual head and you're supposed to do what he wants. Well, he wanted me to leave this. He wanted to leave this church, so we all left. And then we got every kind of crap in the world thrown at us for doing so. I'm still dealing with people that have said ugly things about me from my original church. Most of them now have not. And it's ironic because the ones that said the worst things about me and gave me the worst crap are now trying to come to Costa Rica and stay in my guest house for free. And guess what? I am not having it. When they do that, I send them a list of local hotels that have reasonable prices and say, I really recommend that you stay in the Pueblo Dorado. They have a great breakfast that they give you every morning. The rooms are beautifully updated and comfortable. There's a large pool. You're across the street from the beach. Rather than saying, sure, come on down. Come stay with me. I embrace you with open arms. After you called me filthy names and told me that I was an apostate who was going straight to hell. And now I'm suddenly okay because you won't come to Costa Rica. I lost my daddy, mother, and brother to COVID. Oh my goodness. Uh, Beth, that happens. I hate to say that. It does happen. I've seen that happen, and I am so sorry. That is the deal. I mean, I for so many people that it's just a tragic thing what's been going on. Lost 65 pounds doing that. Oh yeah. I went on the no, what is that called? I went on the diet where you just eat meats and fats. I forgot what they call that. It's very trendy. 3 years ago, and I was on it 4.5 months, and I had a stroke. And for the first time in my life, I popped a high cholesterol. I had to get off of that. Keto was the one. And they said that they think keto had something to do with the stroke because apparently for a certain number of people it does. So I'm just going to advise you, if you go on any diet, talk with your doctor first. If I had done that, I would have done differently. What I've done now and what I'm trying to do and what I've done to lose weight after the keto thing was fruits and vegetables, and eating more cleanly than I have before. So I do a lot of that. And I used to only do that when my asthma was super bad. Now I try to do it all the time. I don't always manage it. We go to Costco once a month and get a giant pizza and we eat that. But I try to throw salad in with it because, Angel, what I try to do is I limit what I eat between certain hours. I don't do the whole fasting thing that a lot of people do where they'll eat for 6 hours, then fast for the rest. It's usually a light breakfast, regular sized lunch, and an extremely light dinner. If I eat dinner at all, it's usually like a piece of fruit, maybe a piece of toast. I'm just not hungry. The one of the drugs I'm on is doing that. I just am not hungry, never. But I'm not losing weight. So I think that it is the drug, and I'm hoping I can try and get off. It's going to be one of those ones. It's a lyric. I'm going to have to get off it, but it is impinging on my weight loss. It's making me gain weight. There's times when I haven't eaten and I've gained. So I know it's got to be the Lyrica. So I've got to talk to my doctor more about that. Yes, I just want to eat in an 8-hour window and see if that makes a difference. Angel, that's what I'm going to try to do. Plant-based is not filling for me, Lisa. There's times that I have to have meat, and there's times when I have to have carbs. I can tell by how I feel whether I've got the right balance or not. Because if it's not, guess what? My body will keep throwing the hunger at me until I fix the imbalance. And so that's why I'm increasing the exercise, because the dieting is not working for me because of the stupid Lyrica. If I can lose by doing more exercise, an hour in the pool, some time on the bike, that would be good. And that was one of the things that's really kind of bizarre about Quiverful too. We were told to stay as youthful as possible. People in my old church, the women colored their hair. No gray was allowed. And at one point, the pastor started weighing everybody on worship team. And we were lectured if we gained in any way, shape, or form. And this was problematic for me because at that time I was still doing the high dose steroids for different things. And if you take steroids, you're going to gain. That's just the reality of it. You could be living on lettuce leaves and ice cubes and you would gain. Low carb, real food. Now, I'm former diabetic type 2, off all medications for everything now. How many 64-year-olds can say that? Well, if it wasn't for the fact that apparently because of being on CPAP for 20 years, even when I was skinny, I would stop breathing. I have high blood pressure every time I put the machine on, so I have to take high blood pressure pills at night. Losing weight is not going to affect that, unfortunately. I've tried that before. It doesn't work for me. But everything else, it's just the Lyrica now, baby. So I don't even take anything for my blood sugar any longer. If I eat correctly, the blood sugar is not a problem. I went to healthy carbs at a certain time: sweet potato, oatmeal, berries. That's the thing that I've had to do too. I do those things. Fear will not make me forget to pray. Sunday, that's good. That's a good thing. I have had thyroid testing, and there's nothing wrong with my thyroid. But I do take a lot of drugs for my asthma that could actually be messing with this. And those are those are not things that I can get off of. I could get off of Lyrica. I'm taking it for nerve pain because I do have a lot of nerve pain every single day. The Lyrica helps me sleep, so that's why I want to see if the exercise the first year helps me lose weight. If I eat right and I exercise, if that'll happen. Because I'm eating like I always eat when I'm trying to diet and I'm not losing. And I used to have this, BuzzFeed used to have this diet, and you can access it. Go to BuzzFeed and Google 14-day clean eating challenge. It's a great diet if you're trying to jumpstart your healthy routines and you're trying to lose a little weight. It's really a good way to start. But the last time I did that, I went into ketoacidosis. I started having problems and I had to get off of it immediately. I take only 2 meds. Unfortunately, you don't have asthma. If you did, oh my goodness, a 30-year colon removed. That's not good. They threatened that with me when I had diverticulitis over and over again. But the way I'm eating even affects that. Oh, that's good. That's good. Broken the chains of all organized religions. 12 years, strict Catholic schooling. Same here. 1st to 12th grade. Nothing more than misogynist, patriarchal. Like I said, my favorite T-shirt that I want to get and have, not a T-shirt, a sweater, a Christmas sweater that says, all I want for Christmas is the end of patriarchy. Bingo. I mean, and then when you talk about these things, it's kind of funny because you get these patriarchal guys that come in here with names like feminism was a mistake that start saying these horrible, horrible, horrible things. And Misty, I wish I could do that. I wish it would help. I feel I'm healthy. I look at you and know that when you're ill, but some days you glow. Oh, yeah. I have my days. I have my ups. I have my downs. The thing that I've learned about my illnesses is I have to protect myself. If I know that going to XYZ is going to make my asthma go nuts, I don't do it. Last night, my husband went to a Bible study with somebody that we used to know. Well, we knew from our first church here. And I didn't go with him. And it sounded like a hoot. They did Christmas carols. They sang Christmas carols. They watched my video last night, and then they watched a video of Jim and I doing Love After Lockup. They did a lot of goofy things, and it sounded like fun. But the reality is everybody is so heavily colored at these things that these big gatherings never work for me. So I stayed home and crocheted after I started trying to edit my video. So there is that. And I'm almost out of year. Carol, I'm going to have to take a look at you. Do you have a filter with UV light? Air filter. Yes, I do. I also have one with the handheld one with a HEPA filter on it. That's really good. I just have to remember to charge those things before I go to church if I'm going to go to church with my husband. And he really wants me to go. I'm not getting anything from it except to say that I do get ideas for videos when they start stuff like a couple of weeks ago, the pastor gave this huge sermon on toxic positivity. He was advocating that kind of toxic positivity, and I know it's a bunch of BS. I know it's a patriarchal thing that they push. It's a way to shut you up. It's a way to shut up critical thinking, criticism, various things. So I saw it for what it was. It's a control tactic and just had to talk about it. So we do that. Where can I get a kitty hat original? I don't know, Will. I don't know, And my cat here, it's one of mine. This is my stray that decided that she lived here. About a year ago, she decided she lived here. She not only lived here, she lives in our house. She lives in my bedroom. And she's my cat. I don't know how that happened. I was feeding her for a long time outside and started petting her. And the next thing I know, she moved in, and she's actually pretty cool. So there's that. So anyway, I should probably go. I've got a million things to do because we're in dry season. I got to haul my drying racks outside and start drying my clothes outside. I love it during dry season here. It's great. You get a lot of stuff done. You can dry everything outside. I only use a dryer for the towels because I'm spoiled about how dry and the dryer towels feel. But everything else goes outside, and it's wonderful because it dries within an hour or two because it's so dry during dry season. And does seem that I do better in dry season with my asthma once the switch over happens. So I'm hoping that that is how it is. I looked up every year for the last 4 years. This is the switchovers are when I have the really bad problems. Oh, had strokes with that. Yeah, yeah. That's another reason why I really want to lose some weight. I want to take possibility of stroke off the table. I've had two. One was a TIA. The other one was pretty serious, and I'm still dealing every day with the pain and consequences of that one. I don't want to have another one like that. My father died at the age I am now of a stroke. His mother died at the age I am now of heart attack. I don't want to follow them. I love both of them, but I don't. That's something I don't want to inherit from either one of them. Mm, Reiki for self care. That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, hit like and subscribe. I enjoy these chats. They're therapeutic. I'm stuck inside a lot. I'm stuck behind the wall because COVID. So it gives me a chance to talk to some friends. And instead of picking up the phone and calling all my friends, which I will do that too sometimes, I have a large group of friends here and in the States, but mostly in the States. Here it's a little harder to make friends because people, to use Stephen King's phrase, they come in and out of your life like busboys. The thing here is about 85 to 95% of the people who move here to retire or whatever end up going back at the end of 2 years. I'm going to talk about that at some point. I'm going to start doing a weekly Costa Rica thing too again because there's just so much misinformation on so many channels about moving to Costa Rica. And I want to, I do have a public email address, and I'll go ahead and post that. I'm going to go ahead and post that in chat. I don't always check it regularly as I should. I'm trying to make myself check it now because except for the Josh Duggar thing, I was just really kind of freaked out and everything didn't work out for me to actually go in and talk to others because I was freaking out over it. There's all these things when you have complex PTSD over your former religion, sometimes you can be triggered. And I just want to say that's okay too. And if you have to take time for yourself to hug yourself for a while and pet your kitties, that's okay too. So you guys have a great day. Try not to be agitated by any of this. I'm not even agitated that my video is gone. It's whatever. I gave the same information today without giving any glory to without a box of Kleenex, and that's always good. Love you guys.